Hello and welcome to STS Podcast, where we discuss new updates about science and technology in the Philippines. I'm Viverlin Santos, your host for today's episode. Today, we'll be talking about science and technology education with our special guest, Savina Lacorte, one of the IT students from Polytechnic University of the Philippines Quezon City branch, who will give her knowledge about the status of science and technology in our country. She is going to share her perspective about science and technology. STS Podcast is brought to you by JNT Express. Express your online business. JNT Express is hoping to help their customers realize a more practical and efficient express service for online business. Also, to effectively encourage and development of their partners to be bigger and stronger. So before we start this, may I ask, how's your day, Miss Savina? You're looking good, huh? What's the secret?
My day is getting better, even though we're still under the pandemic, but I'm still blessed that I'm still here, able to have this opportunity to have this discussion in your podcast.
Wow, that's great. So, okay now. I can't wait to start this Q&A session with you, Miss Savina, okay? So, I'm ready to learn more things from you today. So, here's my first question for you. Okay, so question 1, what can you say about science and technology in the Philippines? And what makes you interested in this topic?
Your question is quite complex, and I can only offer an opinion from the perspective of someone with a research background. So, based on my observation as a student, there are a lot of brilliant Filipino scientists and technologies here in our country. Here in the Philippines, the main roadblock to the advances of science and technology in the Philippines, in my opinion, are, I think, poverty, the lack of government support, and the underappreciation of the local media to science and technology. So let's try to dissect this one by one within this discussion.
Wow, okay. So I agree with that. Poverty is a cycle. And without education, people aren't able to better their situations, right? So, okay, now let's proceed to question number 2. In your opinion, what do you think is the relationship between poverty and science and technology?
Well, surprisingly, a lot. There are so many um, things that we could relate between poverty and science and technology. A study showed that high educational cost results in intellectual deprivation among poor families. But as we all know, the basic pillars of a healthy science and technology sector in any country is access to quality education. Ironically, one way to solve the problems of poverty is through science and technology. One publication focused on the use of physics to alleviate poverty, and there is also an analysis of how science and technology can affect the growth of our economy. There are many science-based high schools in the country. Here in the Philippines, if you are familiar with Kisay, Pisay, and families, and Manila Science High that caters to the intellectually gifted Filipinos. And well, there is of course the famous University of the Philippines, or mostly we all know as UP. It is considered to be the breeding ground for Filipino scientists. While we state the existence of such institutions, there is one looming question. In the current situation, have these institutions provided aid to the underserved Filipino families? Actually, I can't answer this as of the moment because I do not have the number at hand. But if we survey their students, maybe this will shed some light on how many children living below the poverty line are studying in these schools. My hypothesis maybe is only a handful.
Indeed, right. Thank you for the very good answer, Miss Evina. Our next question is, what do you think of the government's lack of support for projects or ideas that will help the country?
We did not make it to the list of countries with high spendings on R&D because our government is full of people who are law and economics graduates, while some of our political leaders regard high intellect as a form of stupidity. I'm sorry for the word, but I'm not saying that law or economics graduates did a bad job in running a government. I will give them the benefit of the doubt. But moving forward, our leaders do not have enough understanding to appreciate science and technology. That is true. That is indeed true, because we have many patriotic scientists who prefer to work outside our country because of the lack of our very government support. Although to be fair, NEDA has a plan for 2040 regarding a science and technology platforms, and I think it is a good news.
Okay, this is the reason a lot of people think about, when you don't have a good job, you aren't getting a good income, right? So,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard from the Economic Policy Institute, okay? So, large group of workers with full-time, year-round employment are still below federal poverty guidelines. That is sad to say, okay? So, issues like this must be heard by the government, right? So now let's proceed to the next question. Okay, so next question is, how do you think this lack of support in science and technology affects our country?
Um, Honestly, we have positive developments and advancements in science and technology, but then we are still low in innovation. We are still low in changes, in new things, because of low research and development expenditure and weakness in STI. When we say STI, it means science and technology and innovation. The factors behind the weak performance of the STI sector include a weak STI culture. There is lack of public awareness and interest in science and technology, and many sectors do not recognize, do not appreciate, and do not understand the use of technology and science for daily activities. There are also several weaknesses in social and professional culture. Some of examples research culture in universities, commercialization of results from public research, among others, and a lack of awareness on intellectual property rights in the research community and the general public persists.
Wow, again, I agree with that. Okay, that is right. Great answer, Ma'am Savina. And next, we are all aware that television, online streams, and social media is a strong tool to deliver important messages to people, and almost all of us are into them. What do you think about the lack of support for the media in science and technology? Does it affect the development of science and technology in the Philippines?
With that question, I do not believe that the Filipinos are imbeciles. When we say imbeciles, means stupid. But I do believe that this Philippine culture of smart shaming and anti-intellectualism has its root in the local media, which always produces shows culminating in such behavior. Take a look at Eat Bulaga or its Showtime. These shows are the noontime shows that most of us Filipinos are always watching. True to the fact that telenovelas and primetime shows are good antidotes of boredom, that is, if you are too lazy to read books or knowledge based publications like Scientific American or Nature magazines. But if you have cable TV, why not change the channel to Discovery or National Geographic? You can gain more and more information and knowledge about the world rather than watch a primetime show about two wives fighting over the same man. What does this mean for our current status in science and technology? It does mean a lot. So things that being affected, so many young people are being affected because of this status. When young minds are exposed to science and technology, this will generate a pool of future scientists. Imagine telenovelas and primetime shows being replaced with BBC Earth series narrated by David Attenborough. Imagine how many young Filipinos will be inspired to become a scientist, right? Also, with the help
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
media, we can raise public awareness about science and technology and what can be the impact of this on our economy. I'm sure it is extravagant. As of the moment, our current media giants only care about making a profit out of their artists and seem to care less about the mental and intellectual well being of their viewers, indirectly affecting our current pool of science and technology experts in the future.
I like the last words you've said, Miss Savina, that the current media giants indirectly affects our current pool of science and technology. What a great point! So now let's proceed to the next question. To think that our country is a developing country with a high infant mortality rate, what do you think are the major contributions of science and technology to Philippine nation building? Despite the different backgrounds and beliefs, will the Philippines be able to unite into modern society?
I think many people, both inside and outside the Philippines, have contributed to the transformation of the archipelago's scattered islands into a modern state. Communications and transportation may be the most important contributions of science and technology to their political unity. Without considerable contributions from both disciplines, it's difficult to fathom how nearly 7,500 islands here in our country could be managed in harmony, right? Last 2018, 574 firms were provided with hardware and software to upgrade their technology capacity. These micro, small, and medium enterprises, or mostly known as MSMEs, have received the Small Enterprises Technology Upgrading Program or SETUP Innovation Fund. SETUP is a DOST program that aims to encourage MSMEs to adopt technological innovations to improve their products and services. In here, we can see that the program aims to help MSMEs improve their competitiveness by providing them with a loan that is payable in 3 years. DOST also assisted 400 startups in 2017 and provided them with all sorts of assistance from money, services, calibration, and many, many more services.
What a beautiful answer, because listeners, science and technology hold the key to the progress and development of any nation. Technology plays a fundamental role in wealth creation, improvement of the quality of life, and real economic growth and transformation in any society. Let us remember this. So, our next question for Ma'am Sabina is um, what are the major contributions of the Philippines to the field of science and technology at present? Will it be a big factor in the future of the Philippines?
According to Samuel Astacaan Escabarte, he's a science teacher by the way, he said that the Filipinos have contributed a lot in the field of science and technology. There have been inventions by Filipino scientists that really brought success and really brought pride for our country. The following are just some of the innovations by the Filipinos, and I want to share it within this discussion. Some inventions are lamps. Lamps use seawater instead of kerosene, and that's amazing. This was invented by a Filipino scientist. Next is cooking stoves using methane gas from farm animals' waste. This was invented by a Filipino scientist as well. Third is running a car machine using water instead of gasoline. So it lessens the pollution within the society, within the community, and especially in the rural, the urban places here in our country. This was conceptualized by a Filipino scientist. Fifth is a group of Filipino students invented robotic toy cars. There was also another group of Filipinos who was also able to invent dengue testing kits. And all these things, the mentioned inventions above, are just some of the inventions by our few Filipino scientists, and we are expecting more and more pool of scientists to be raised up in the future. Their inventions may not be that big, but their inventions can contribute to science and technology, not just here in the Philippines, but also around the globe.
Wow, we didn't know that, Miss Savina. Thank you for sharing with us your knowledgeable perspective, and we gained so many lessons with this conversation.
So I think this is the time to wrap things up. Um, to in a summary of all the discussions a while ago,
Yes, yes,
we
yes.
do have great scientists and technologies in our country indeed, but unfortunately, the current state of our science and technology sector is, sad to say, not that healthy. To end, let me share with you a saying by Gerard Ompad. He said, "If knowledge is the new currency, then science must be the new commodity. We must have both to advance as a nation and as individual Filipino citizens." And that's all I wanted to discuss to all the listeners here in this podcast. And thank you for listening.
Wow, I agree with what Miss Sabina says. Okay, so first root of all these issues we tackled is job growth, the next is education, followed by warfare or climate change, social injustice, and many more. So, in order for us to know what we deserve to have and deserve to learn, is to study, to know what we should and shouldn't have. We must know our rights as a person, and as I've said a while ago, technology helps both students and teachers to have easy access to information, greater interest in learning, increased retention of information, robust information storage, and better presentation of information. Technology plays a fundamental role in wealth creation, improvements of the quality of life, and real economic growth and transformation in any society. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to Miss Sabina Lacorte for joining us during that wonderful discussion of updates on science and technology in our country. We hope you gain valuable insights into this day's episode. If you enjoy our show, please rate and review us on Spotify Podcast. And be sure to come back next week for another discussion of science and technology. Until then, this is Beverly, and don't forget to wear your mask and wash your hands at all times to avoid the coronavirus. Keep safe always and have a wonderful day to all of us. Thank you for listening. This podcast was created by STS Production. It was produced and recorded by Viverlin Santos and Savina Lacorte, researched by Justin Pe, Clarence Abarratigue, Janelle Octaviano, and Arlie Luganob, and edited by Viverlin Santos. STS Podcast is a product of STS Production and Riverside FM. Want to ask a question on a future episode of Podcasting Q&A? Click on the link in the show notes to record your questions in a voicemail.